Hey guys, so today I just wanted to do sort of a quick, video. Yeah, so I did a thing here recently. Alrighty, so what I've done is here recently, just kind of been thinking about things, quite a bit. And I've wanted to join the military, the United States Army for, a long time now. My twin brother did it maybe 2 years after we graduated high school, and so we graduated in 2009. So like I said, yeah, it was about 2 years after we graduated when he had joined, and I wanted to do it then, but then we ended up, like me and my wife, was having, it was my first child, and then, her second. So we I rather decided, not to join, just then and all that. I was going to wait. Yeah, waited, a long time. I went through the process about 5 years ago, now, and kind of talking about the process a little bit. Like, what I mean by that is, of course, the first step is, reaching out to a recruiter and talking to, your local, recruiter, whether it be for the Army, the Marines, Navy, or the Air Force, or the Coast Guard. So I'd reached out to local, Army recruiter, started talking to them, went through everything, did the ASVAB test, did good on it, passed it, went to the Charlotte MEPS office, went through the process down there, just for the physical and all that, because I had a tattoo at the time that was here on the right side here behind my ear and all that. And then, so like I said, I went through all of that. Now, before I went to the MEPS office and all that, I remember my recruiter, at the time and all that, had asked if I would be willing to do one session of the tattoo removal process, which is a laser, tattoo removal. And so I told him, said, yeah, of course, I'll do it. So I did one session. Like I said, the tattoo I had back here, it was done in red ink. And so just with the one session that I did, you cannot tell that I had ever had a tattoo back there now. You just can't. So anyways, like I said, went through all of that, went to MEPS, did the physical, all that, and then it was about 3 months. I hadn't heard nothing from my recruiter, at all. And then he finally, had texted me, and all he said was like, hey, that didn't work, we're going to try something else. Didn't tell me what didn't work, nothing. By then I was tired of, like waiting on it, just tired of fooling with it. So I decided, like, no, I'm not going to, I'm just going to do something else. And I still had people calling me up to about a year after I went to Charlotte. I remember it was one of the sergeants that worked down there had called me, and he was kind of like, hey, so this is Sergeant, so and so. I was here that day. You was down here for for your physical. He was like, I see, you went through everything, passed everything, but didn't end up joining, and was like, do you mind telling me why? And so I told him, about that, and he was like, well, do you mind if I take a look at it, kind of figure it out? I said, yeah, that's fine. So he did it while I was on the phone with him, and he was the one that actually told me that it was the tattoo waiver that got denied. So I mean, at least he told me. Like I said, my own recruiter didn't even tell me that it was the tattoo waiver that they denied, or we could have, reworked, something or whatever, for it. But whatever. Like I said, so I didn't do it, 5 years ago. And then, like I said, just kind of thinking on, like my life, and all that, my kids, my wife, like, I want them to have a better life than what I've ever had, and then plus all of the opportunities and all that, with the military, with the Army, and all that. So it got me thinking about it again. Now, I do know that the age cutoff now is 42 years old. It was 35 years old whenever I started the process again this past March. Yeah, it was March whenever I started the process again, like February, March. So just what, like 3 or 4 months ago, now. And so, yeah, like I said, just started thinking about it again, decided to do it again. So again, reached out to a recruiter, went back to the initial office that I was with, like I said, about 5 years ago. Of course, whole new set of recruiters and all that, station commander and all that in there now, which is good. They're all great. Even, like especially my recruiter that I'm dealing with, he's fantastic, he's awesome. And the station commander that's over there now, he is awesome as well. So whenever I went over initially to talk to him, kind of let them know about all of that from before, and all that, and I talked to the station commander. So of course, I had to do a tattoo waiver again this time because of this one that's here on my left hand, as well as, if you can see it right here on my finger on the inside there. So of course we had to do a waiver because of both of those tattoos, and then he also included in the waiver from before, where I had that tattoo back here before. And he was, pretty confident and all. He's like, oh, I'll get it approved for you. And he did. Everything went through. Of course I had to do a family, dependent waiver, again, because including my wife, I have 6 dependents. So I had to do another, family waiver as well. And I can't remember which one is which, but I know one waiver came back in 3 days, had all the signatures on it, good to go. And the other one came back in 4 days, had every signature on it, good to go, approved. So that was awesome. At least we made it through that part, this time. Now, I didn't find out that both waivers were approved until after I came back from MEPS, again, because of course I had to redo everything, so including the ASVAB test. So I went to the local National Guard Center and did the ASVAB test there, and I actually did better on it this time. I think I scored about 4 or 5 points higher on it this time than I did 5 years ago. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, like I said, I graduated in 2009, so it's been a while since I've done any like that, like arithmetic reasoning, things like that. So I had to study, quite a bit. I took the practice test over and over and over and over, just to get used to it again. So yeah, so like I said, kind of following those initial steps there. Like I said, I talked to a recruiter, got all of that going for me, of course the paperwork, all that stuff. Took the ASVAB test again. After the ASVAB test, I would say it was probably a week or so after I did the ASVAB, I went back to the Charlotte MEPS office for the physical. Now, you can do the ASVAB test there at the MEPS office, if you choose to. I just chose to do it, here before I went down there. Now, if you decide to go that route and you do the test there at the MEPS office, you just know that you're going to be down there for, well, I mean, of course it's 2 days anyway, because you'll go down one day, stay the night at a hotel, and all that. And then the next day or next morning is when you get up and you go to the MEPS office. So if you do the test there, of course that first day, whenever you get down there to the MEPS office, you're going to go straight to the MEPS office and you'll do the ASVAB test then. And then, like I said, after you're done, all that, they take you back to the hotel. Of course, you get dinner, at the hotel. And then they kind of go over the rules and stuff like that. You have a set time that you got to be there in the room, things like that. Next morning, you get a early wake up call, go down, breakfast, and then you're on the bus going to the MEPS office, and you're going through everything that they do with you there. Now, I'm not, sure, what I can tell you that you don't do, whatever there. So I'm not really going to get into that. Just know it's a few different stations and stuff like that you got to go through there at the MEPS office, where they're just pretty much verifying that you are physically fit to serve, in the military. Okay. Now, one thing I will tell you too, and I saw it quite a bit, of course I'm a little bit older, 34 years old. I'll be 35 whenever I do finally ship out, which I'll go over that in a minute. But so I'll be 35 years old whenever I do, ship out. And a lot of the younger, people, younger, generation and all that, they'll show up there wearing, sweatpants and, just, I don't know, just comfy clothes, is what they call it. Don't do that. Okay, don't do that. Again, for jobs, things like that, you want to have a good, first impression and all that. So just kind of do your part, kind of dress up a little bit. It doesn't necessarily have to be, dress pants and a dress shirt. You can wear, even if it's just a nice pair of blue jeans and a polo shirt or something like that, just kind of dress up a little bit. Okay, don't just show up wearing, a sweatsuit. Okay, that's just, my 2 cents on that. Just kind of do your part, kind of, dress up a little bit, act professional. Okay. Now, like I said, so after I went to MEPS, of course, came back home, waited. And I remember this was around the beginning of April whenever I went to the MEPS office for the physical, and all that. Okay. And then I would say it was 2 weeks maybe after I went to MEPS is when I finally got a call. I remember it was April 22nd that my recruiter called me to let me know that they needed me over there the following day, so on the 23rd, for us to go over the MOSs, take a look at everything, and yeah, it was time for me to choose my job. So I went over, like I said, it was on the 23rd. We looked over everything, and for the most part, I did send a short list of jobs that I was interested in to my recruiter. None of those jobs were available. Of course, it was mainly stuff like infantry. I think there was a PSYOPs job that was showing on there, and just a couple of other things on there. But for the jobs that I really wanted to do was like a MP, a mechanic job, something like that. So of course, they had to send it over to the first sergeant. He made the phone call. He pulled the job for me. So the job that I signed for that day that I chose was 91 Hotel, so 91H, which is a tracked vehicle repair. So more or less, it's like a mechanic for the tanks and stuff like that. That's a lot of what I wanted to do, what I was used to doing. I did stuff like that all through high school, and I did a little bit of a community college for mechanics. And that's what I wanted to do, was do something, work with my hands a little bit. So like I said, that day is when I signed for that job. Now that job, there was no sign-on bonus for that job, which kind of sucked, but it's fine. I don't care. That's something that I really wanted to do, so that's what I'm doing. And then for that job too, for that initial contract that I signed, is only for 3 years. Now I do plan on re-enlisting afterwards. I do plan on, a lot of people will say, I'm going to do my 20 years and then I'm done, I'm out. I plan on taking this thing as far as I can go, getting as much training and education as I can along the way, and just things like that, getting all the certifications that I can get. Like I said, I just plan on taking this thing as far as I can go. Like I said in the beginning, it's for my wife and my kids. I want them to have a better life. My wife has always wanted to travel, so this was a good way to do it. And then of course my kids and all that too, I know that they will be well taken care of. Yeah, so like I said, that was the job that I signed for. Now on your paper on your contract, whenever you sign it, of course, it's got the length for the contract, and it also tells you where you're going for your training. So I will be going to Fort Jackson in South Carolina for my basic training. I ship out September 21st. So that's 6 days after my birthday. So like I said, I'll be 35 when I ship out. And then after that, around the beginning of December is when I will start my AIT, which is in Fort Lee in Virginia. Now after that, I have no idea where I'm going after that. So, that part kind of sucked, because I know there are some jobs that will show it on there whenever the recruiter pulls it up, and it'll tell you either where you're going for your first duty station, or if there's a couple of different ones on there, you can choose, where you're going. But this job did not, which again, it's fine. It is what it is. So yeah. And then after you, sign, and all that, get your contract done, you go swear in, all that. They put you in what's called the Future Soldier Program. So you'll go to your, recruiting office, and that's where you do workouts, different types of workouts, depending on what they have, planned for you for that week and all that. But you go and you do these workouts every week. And the day may vary on when you do it, but I know for, us at my office, we do it every Thursday. Which is good. Now, I will tell you one thing about that, as well, real quick. Don't let that be your only day that you're doing any type of PT. Especially for older, people like me, really not done like a whole lot, like that since high school. So I've been doing my best, going to the gym, working out, getting out and running, things like that. I'm just trying to get back into the groove, of doing all that stuff. So, and it's really helping. It really is. So like I said, do what you can throughout the week, not just that one day that you're at your, PT. Okay. Yeah. So, that's really all I've got for now, for you guys. If you have any questions, anything, I'll do my best to answer them, help you out as best as I can. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good day.